Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Tai'Shar and Manethrin, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Will.
I'm Sam.
We're here continuing along in The Lord of Chaos, chapter 47. Sam's got this one. Why don't you take it away?
Chapter 47, The Wandering Woman. Matt is on the road to Ibudar with 6 women, 4 of them Aes Sedai. Just what he always wanted. You know, this is life goals. And an invisible line splits the camp in half. Matt could tell there was tension between the Supergirls and Vandine and Adelius, but he's really only too happy to stay out of it. He thought that the gateway would drop them right outside of Ibudar, because why wouldn't it? But that's not what happened. So he didn't pack enough food. So having no good options, he tells Niram to pass out whatever he stashed away for Matt, so the soldiers will have something to eat. But that ends up consisting of pickled quail's egg, honey smoked tongue. Meanwhile, the ladies are eating lamb and soup, so Matt's just kind of in a temper about this a little bit. After dinner, Elaine asks Matt to go for a walk and tries to persuade him to hand over the foxhead medallion for her to study. Just every evening when they stop, she's like, I'll give it back.
Well, the first time she doesn't exactly try to persuade him. She's just like, hey, look, since you're going to give me that, why don't you...
Fair enough. That's a good point. Yeah,
why don't you just give me that?
Right. Because it's a Tir-Angriel and Aes Sedai. Everybody knows that Tir-Angriel belonged to Aes Sedai.
Right.
And Matt's like, I don't know what's a Tir-Angriel? I don't know. Tier what? Are we talking about drug references?
She's like, you know very well what they are. Moraine explained it to you. And I appreciate Elaine giving us a little bit of a continuity check there. Like, wait a second.
You know.
Yeah.
Matt's like, well, remember the stone of Tyr and when I saved your keister? So you can ask Rand for some Tir-Angriel when I deliver you to him. Just kind of love their back and forth. You know, like they're definitely like brother and sister, just quarreling.
Yep.
So when they return from their walk, Elaine makes a show of inspecting the soldiers' camp and says, Matt's done well, but perhaps he will think ahead better in the future and have food for them. Just making him feel it. After she leaves, the foxhead medallion goes cold, like someone is channeling against him. And he can't tell which one of the Aes Sedai is doing it because they're standing in a row watching him. Just not even trying to hide what's happening here.
Yep.
So every evening thereafter, Elaine does another inspection. One time Matt sarcastically says he's glad she's pleased, and she gives him a regal smile and says, well, you should be. And telling her off about it earns him an arched eyebrow, or she just ignores him. And she tells him that one of his men, Ted, there's actually a Ted. This could be Steve, Steve's brother, Ted.
Right, yeah. Steve and Ted, sure.
But Ted here has a boil on his bottom, and another one of the men, Laudrin Mendair, has 5 flasks of brandy in his saddlebags. So over time, all the men begin to grin when Elaine compliments them, and even Vannon knuckles his forehead when she says something to him. Matt tries to be pleasant with the ladies, but they all just avoid him. Avienda tells him he has no honor and should show Elaine respect. He offers to go shoot with Birgitta for money, but she gives him a look and declines. At an inn called the Marriage Knife, Matt finally manages to corner Nynaeve and says, I just want to talk to you. And she jumps up and shouts, leave me alone, Matt Cawthon. Tom and Julian, at least, they're willing to have a drink with him at an inn now and then or ride alongside him. Matt finds that in Ibudar, men and women fight duels to the death. A man who wants to marry a woman gives her a knife and says, kill him if he displeases her. And a woman killing a man is considered justified unless proven otherwise.
Right. The Me Too movement found a particularly satisfying resolution in this culture, I think.
Yeah. This brings up a point. I had a friend on Facebook the other day ask, basically if people thought that he should read the Wheel of Time books. And one of the people responded and said, I liked them, but I didn't like the portrayal of women. And,
right.
We've talked about this in the podcast before. I think it's fair to say that Jordan falls into stereotypes of, damsel in distress. But, it's stuff like this that you can tell he had his heart in the right place. Like he was genuinely setting out to portray a society that empowers women and having these powerful female characters. And, yeah, he was a bit ham-fisted about it, and yeah, he makes mistakes here and there, but it just that's something I always like to tell people whenever they ask about the books, like, well, this is something that is an issue, but yeah, I think Jordan at least was trying to do the right thing.
Well, and I mean, certainly he doesn't always get it right. Understand, particularly in today's view of things, that
absolutely
it may set a little wrong, but also I feel like there's a lot of good arguments to be made. And actually our friends over at the Black Tower did, I think back at the beginning of this year, maybe they did a episode that was just about, just kind of this exact discussion, like the portrayal of women and everything. And
interesting.
And I think it actually was the second one they did on that topic. They indicated, I think, that they'd done it a few times. So there's a pretty thorough, they really argue for the fact that, no, the portrayal of women is not sexist. In fact, they're portrayed well. And, I think there's plenty of times where you can say, yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a trope, Dina being killed off to motivate Tom, kind of,
yeah,
those kinds of things. I wouldn't necessarily defend that kind of stuff, but
right.
But yeah,
the main characters, Nynaeve,
Right.
Egwene, I mean, they are powerful female characters, and yes,
Exactly.
sometimes they themselves are stereotypical. I mean, Nynaeve being so emotional, for example, but in the end, I mean, they have a huge impact on the story.
right.
There are plenty of times where, what is it, the Bechdel test? I think there's plenty of times where these books would pass that, where
Right.
Aes Sedai are talking to each other about other Aes Sedai and not about Rand or something.
Right.
And so there's definitely something to be said there for that, where,
Sure.
Anyway, that was a side note, but
Yeah.
something I was thinking about. So one night in the inn, Tom tells Matt that Birgitta is Elaine's warder. Apparently, Elaine let it slip one night when Vandine and Adelius were in earshot, and they did not take kindly to it. Improper for a newly minted Aes Sedai to already have a warder and a woman.
Yes.
Well, now that's downright scandalous.
Oh, the scandal.
Matt says, yeah, she'll do well enough if she can shoot that bow, to which Julian chokes on his ale. Because he knows that Birgitta indeed can shoot that bow.
Right.
And also who she is. Tom slaps Julian on the back and says, I think she can shoot it.
Yeah.
So all of the Aes Sedai try to channel against Matt at one point or another to test out the fox head.
Yeah.
And after a while, he's kind of feeling smug about it because they can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Until one day, Adelius hits him in the back with some horse dung. That's the limit then. Flows of the power can't touch him directly when he's wearing it, but someone could still drop a boulder on his head. I mean, that makes sense. It makes sense that it doesn't create a force field around you that stops a rock from hitting you or something. I mean, it's not stopping physics, just the power. But it is news to Matt, who promptly goes to the closest inn and drinks himself senseless on shots of brandy. And later at his bed, he's rationalizing to himself, it's better than nothing. And of course it's better than nothing. I mean, no one else in the world has this thing, But also that he would go drink more brandy if he could walk. And of course, the next day, he's viciously hungover when they reach Ibudar, which is on the river Eldar again. Hearing that again. So Matt's first impression, other than being viciously hungover, is that the city is white. Buildings, palaces, towers, spires, some red, gold, and blue domes here and there, but otherwise white everywhere. City is full of squares, canals, bridges, fountains, statues. So yeah, okay, I'm getting a mental image there. Matt looks around, sees an inn, and suddenly the dice start rolling in his head. So Vandine says, all right, we're going to the palace through a lesser gate, take rooms there. Matt says, have fun, we're going to go take rooms in that inn, pointing to a random one. Elaine says, you are not to drink to excess, Master Cawthon. Some men do not know when to stop. You should certainly not allow a young boy to see men and drink. If only Matt knew the irony of that,
Yes.
of that statement. The inn is called the Wandering Woman, and seems perfect to Matt. Lots of outlanders in the common room, pretty serving girls, gambling, and a haze of pipe smoke. The innkeeper's name is Satel Ennen, and Matt feels like he's come home. And then the dice stop rolling, and Matt has no idea why. On to chapter 48, Leaning on the Knife. Swap to Nynaeve's perspective in the Teresian palace in Ibudar, who cares? She gets out of a big copper tub and shoos away a serving girl who tries to dress her. we get a little architecture here. They have 4 bedrooms that flank one sitting room, all with ceilings painted in skies and clouds. Tom and Julian have been given a room in the serving quarters, which irritates Elaine but makes Tom laugh, apparently. Elaine offers Nynaeve some mint and cloudberry tea. Delicious. Nynaeve says, I'm kind of surprised at the reception we got in Ibudar. Vandine and Adelius had presented them to the resident Aes Sedai, Marilil Kindevan, I don't know.
And then Marililla.
Okay.
I don't know.
And then dismiss them. That sounds right. Basically they like sending the accepted away. So the grown-up Aes Sedai can talk in private. And Marililla was shocked that the Supergirls are all Aes Sedai now, and that Egwene is the Amyrlin. So Vandine and Adelius let slip that they're at Ibudar to look for runaways, which makes Nynaeve think that they're hiding something. Spoiler alert. Yep, they are. We don't know what yet. It doesn't make sense because there are allegedly so few girls that actually succeed at running away. They always get dragged back. What runaways could there possibly be, essentially, is the thinking that Nynaeve has. But Vandine and Adelius refuse to say anything else about it. Birgitta says Nynaeve has been avoiding Matt like a Chelton flinching from a tax collector. To which Avienda says, "You must have traveled far. I've never heard of Chelta before." So, of course, that wipes the grin off Birgitta's face, because no doubt Chelta had been dead and gone for thousands of years.
Right. Poor Birgitta.
Nynaeve pulls back the attention by saying, "Matt threatened her," to which Avienda fingers her belt knife. "Not like that," she hastens to add. Elaine's like, "Enough. Matt's the least important part of this trip, and only here so I can study his Tyrann. We're here for the Windy Pot," or whatever it is. So we should start looking for it, since Nynaeve and I have no idea where we saw it until it ran me odd. For some reason.
Here in the States, you have to go to Colorado for the Windy Pot.
Touche. I went to one of those shops. We went to Denver for a baby moon when our second kid was born. We didn't buy anything, but I just wanted to see what it was all about. And they they just had these little plexiglass shelves set up, and they had like an iPad that told you what every type was, and there was a man standing at the door with a very large rifle. I guess they're very serious about their security. It was kind of
got to protect the product, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, I only recently found out that apparently there's been a ton of nut thefts out of California, and that's not even a joke. There's like millions of dollars worth of truckloads of pistachios and almonds have been, and because think about it, it's the perfect crime. There's no way to trace almonds.
True.
So like iPads have and stuff like that, they all have, anyway, sorry.
That is interesting. I've wondered why my pistachios were a little cheaper lately. Maybe Kroger's getting in on the heist.
Right. There you go.
And the fact that they're shelled, you can buy them shelled. That blew my mind. Like, man, we are in the future. I mean, things are awful in some ways, but shelled pistachios?
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, sure, it's 2020, but.
Right. The future. They, all the Supergirls agree to all buy Ubudari dresses with those deep necklines. Even Avienda, who, doesn't want to. When in Rome, show extra cleavage, I guess. Oh, Robert Jordan. He's so silly.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
A lady shows up in the livery of House Mitsobar and tells them that Queen Tai'Lin wishes to see the 3 Aes Sedai if it pleases them. Elaine and Nynaeve go with her, while Avienda and Birgitta agree to have a look around the city. I'm going to get it right. On the way to see the Queen, Nynaeve spots Jacob Carradine, who ignores them. The serving woman tells her that the White Cloaks sent an embassy to Ibudar months ago. And so we enter the throne room, and Jordan describes Tai'Lin as an impressive woman. She has a regal bearing that Elaine would have trouble matching.
And a PhD.
Right. Glossy black hair that is gray at the temples, framing a handsome if unlined face. She has 2 scars on her cheek, all but vanished. She asks where Avienda is, and Elaine says, Avienda is not Aes Sedai. And Tai'Lin's like, you are? You're 18 at most, and Nynaeve can't be more than 23. And Nynaeve snaps back, 26, going on 27. Basically. And she says, I'm yellow, Aja, and Elaine is a green. Do you think the others would let us wear this ring as a joke? And, of course, the Amyrlin is Elaine's age, which is news to Tai'Lin. And is she? Tai'Lin responds flatly. No one told her that, and there's an army in Altara gathered under a great captain, so not real fond of surprises right now. Elaine's like, yeah, shouldn't have an army inside your borders without permission. Not cool. But don't worry, nobody's here to fight you. They're just, they don't mean the throne of the winds any harm. Interesting, that's the throne of the winds, the bowl of the winds, thrones. Bren is leading the army north out of your borders right now. And Tylan's like, well, that's good to know. I wish somebody had told me that. And also, no one has apologized for it until you just now. She says, please sit and speak your mind. Nynaeve and Elaine are a little shocked. Marilla, I can't say it, has told them that Tylan required ceremony carved in polished marble. Nynaeve says, I wouldn't.
Polished marble. That's
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Captain. Nynaeve says, I wouldn't know where to begin. Tylan says, maybe start with why 4 more Aes Sedai are in Ibudar. It can't be just to outshine Elida's embassy of Teslin and Jolene. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Anyway, there are white cloaks here, and Nynaeve's like, why? Why do you listen to Karin? He's awful. He's a butcher. So this appears to really upset Tylan, who takes a minute and says, well, I did say speak your mind. And the truth is House Mitsubar has barely more land than the city of Ibudar itself. And since the fall of the Stone of Tyr, Pedro Niles, the only reason that Ilion has not fully invaded and only taken 100-mile swath of Altara. So she says, I'm trying to pass something of this kingdom onto my son, instead of being found drowned the same day he meets with a hunting accident. Real Games of Throne-ian there. So Tylan says, now I have stood bare-breasted in the fish market for you. Answer me mine. Why do I have the honor of 4 more Aes Sedai? So Elaine basically breaks it down. She says, we're here for a Tyr Angriel we found in the world of dreams, could fix the weather, etc. Tylan says, that'd be good if you could fix the weather. The quarter you described sounds like the Rahad. Pretty rough area. Could have a knife in your back before you know it. Can't send soldiers in there or it'll be the wine riots all over again. Okay. But maybe there are other ways I can help.
The wine riots.
Yeah, good old wine riots.
Like the Lesser Onion Wars, or the 2 Chainsaw Baird Massacre. The
Andor potato famine.
Yeah.
Nynaeve says, okay, so apparently Adelius and Vandine were going to take over the hunt for the bowl too. We didn't know that. And this is after they head back to their apartments. They briefly meet Tylan's son, Beslin, which is like, it's just kind of a moment. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. And so Nynaeve says, you think it was a good idea to tell Tylan everything? And Elaine says, if we had lied, it would have been a grave insult to her. But I bet we'll have the bowl in 10 days. I mean, how bad can it be? We've survived Chanchico, and all I got was this lousy Tyr Angriel t-shirt. Chapter 49, The Mirror of Mists. Rand is smoking a pipe with Perrin in a courtyard next to a fountain. Perrin says, please reconsider going to Tyr. And Perrin says, what about what men saw? Do you really think don't you think I should be close to you? And Rand says, do you really want to be tied to my belt? Perrin's like, well, that's not what I had meant. No. He says, I haven't been able to do what I want since we left Emmons Field with Moraine. Loyal shows up, and Perrin and Rand ask, Loyal, are you okay? And Perrin's like, you look tired. Oh, man, I hate it when people say you look tired.
I know.
What am I supposed to do with information? I should better go take a nap, Loyal is equally irritated. If I'm tired, I've walked a long way. I must say it felt good to be back on my own feet. You always know where your feet are taking you, but you can never be sure with a horse. Anyway, my feet are faster. So Perrin owes Loyal a gold crown because he thought it would take Loyal 10 days to make the trip. Perrin laughs and tells Rand that apparently Gaul has corrupted Loyal. He dices now and bets on horse races when he hardly can tell one horse from another. Then again, I can't imagine Gaul would be all that great at betting on horse races either.
Right.
Generally, the Aiel don't seem to know.
They don't even like horses, yeah. That would be like me at a wine tasting, I feel like.
I hear you. Most anybody at a wine tasting. The whole wine tasting thing is just
It's almost Episcopalian in its flavor, while being slightly draconian and embracing the brutalist undertones of the historist.
That sounds perfect to me. I think you have a future in wine tasting, even maybe especially if you don't like wine. So Perrin asks Loyal if he found the abandoned steading and if he stayed long enough to sort of be okay Loyal's like, what do you mean? I just wanted to see one, for sure. I'm honest. I'm good for 10 more years out and about. And Rand says, that's not what your mother says. Loyal jumps up, staring wildly in every direction. Is he here now? Oh my goodness. Perrin's like, relax, man. Rand gatewayed her to the Two Rivers like a month ago, dude. Her and Elder Haemon, that is. Loyal's like, what? He kind of freezes and mutters to himself and says, was anyone else with him? And Rand says, well, as a matter of fact, there was a young woman named Aerith. And Loyal moans and leaps to his feet and says, they're going to marry me off. I'm going to have a wife. She won't let me travel. I don't have enough notes for my book yet. He stops pacing and says, Aerith, daughter of Iva, daughter of Alar? I know her. We met at Spitting Sofu. You were there.
I love that moment because it's like, oh no, they're going to marry me off and I'm going to have to stay home. Did you say Aerith?
Exactly. Right. Rand's like, yeah, I've been trying to tell you that. She said you were handsome and gave you a flower. Loyal's like, yes, she listened intently when I explained Cerdin's theory about the ways. Of course, that gets Rand thinking, scheming like you do. He says, I want to put guards on all the way gates. I need someone to find them and talk to the elders to get permission to guard them. Perrin interrupts him and says, Light, you send Matt off to face down Aes Sedai. You want to dump me in the middle of a war with Samael. Now you want to send Loyal off when he's only just arrived. Look at him, he needs rest. Is there anyone you won't use? Fair points, man. Rand gets mad too and says, yes, I'll use you. I'll use Loyal. I'll use the bloody Queen of England if I have to. It's the end of the world we're fighting for, Holmes. Paraphrasing.
Yeah, sure.
So Loyal pats both of them on the shoulder with a fist the size of a ham. I don't see a fist the size of a ham. It's pretty...
you feel like a fist the size of the ham would write things that are not well thought out, kind of tone deaf and very obvious.
Yeah, I'm just imagining an actual like Smithfield pork ham fist.
Yeah.
No, that's not what it is, but that's what I picture. Loyal says, don't fight. You should both rest in a steading. Very peaceful. I don't know why I'm starting to sound like Winnie the Pooh now, but anyway. Rand,
father.
Yeah. Honey. Rand says, sorry, but he obviously is still mad. Perrin's like, whatever. So, but then, may have said more, but Min runs up and says, the Aes Sedai are coming now. 7 of them, not 3. Rand says, okay, it's all good. Tells Jelani that he's going to the Grand Hall, where he will be receiving Aes Sedai shortly. Says, have Sulin meet me with my coat and dragon scepter. And okay, of course, this being my second read through, and actually this may have been more than my second of this book. I read this book a bunch of times back in the day, but I haven't read it since, I don't know, probably 2001 or whenever. It was a long time ago. I was thinking, oh man, this is it. This is going to be it. We have a nice little fake out coming.
Yeah.
Rand gets to the dragon throne. A moment before Mistress Harfour scurries in and says, there are Aes Sedai. And then all 7 appear in the doorway. So Rand feels Lews Therin reaching for Saidin, but Rand takes it himself. Lews Therin thinks 7. I said 3, but 7 come. I must be cautious. Yes, cautious. Mm-hmm. They're all clothed in the colors of their Aja, like the video game. They step forward and form an arrowhead formation, I guess. And then suddenly they're much taller. And Lews Therin thinks they think to impress me, spinning the Mirror of Mists. As a side note, I think Mirror of Mists would have been a good title for one of these books. I mean, some of these, like Path of Daggers, Crown of Swords, like some of these names are just not super descriptive of anything.
Arbitrary, yeah.
Winter's Heart, like, come on, Mirror of Mists. That's a good one.
Yeah, there you go.
Demira Arif speaks, and her voice fills the Grand Hall. She says, we mean you no harm, but we reject your strictures now. It'd be really great if she at least somehow referenced the fact that she got knifed by fake Aiel, so Rand could be like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't do that. But nope, not a hint of that.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, they probably wouldn't believe him if he denied it, but come on.
Right.
Come on, y'all. Communicate. So Demira says, we will come and go as we please from now on, but we'll still tell you we're coming. After this time, that is. But you will remove your Aiel watchers, and any future insults will be punished. Know that we are Aes Sedai. Like, we knew that. Like, that wasn't ever in question. Rand says that the Tower emissaries in Karin don't seem to mind the rules, and they aren't offended. Demira's like, they ain't us. We won't bite you. You don't know me. She says, the contempt in her voice stings Rand, and he thinks that maybe he's going to shield them. But Lews Therin says, nah, you can't. They're too strong. You probably won't be able to. So instead, Rand weaves spirit, fire, and earth and strikes just so, shattering the illusion. So suddenly there are just 7 women standing in front of him again. He says, I don't care about anything you just said. All the restrictions still stand, plus 1. I expect to see the respect due the Dragon Reborn. You can go. The audience is at an end. So they stare him down and then leave. Not the big moment.
Well, I wanted to leave right now anyway.
I said everything I meant to say. I'm leaving.
Yes.
So Mullane says, the Karin handled them well. They must be taken by the scruff of the neck. So Rand smiles and says, perhaps it is best. This is the best way to handle the wise ones, too. Mullane lowers her voice and says, do not be a complete fool, Rand al'Thor. Bale laughs, even though his wife glares at him. You're going to pay for that later, Bale. Switch to men. There are 2 problems as she sees it. Rand and his demands for respect, and also the Aes Sedai. They are the problem. They won't just give up on their demands. But the only way for her to find out what's really going to happen is to go back to the Crown of Roses and talk to him. So she rides back on her horse, Wild Rose. And this is a fun scene. This is one of those, just like you said earlier, an example of a character, sort of a character we never see again, or if we ever see, it's very rarely, but with a kind of an interesting little backstory. In the common room, Min spots Mahiro Shukosa, who is a warder to Rafaela Sindel, and she describes him as handsome in a rugged sort of way, a lord in candor, travels with a small library, wins or loses at gambling with an easy smile, recites poetry, plays the harp, and dances like a dream. Exactly Min's type before she met Rand. And Mahiro thinks of her as a little sister and calls her Cabbage. That was great. So Min's like, what's been going on? And he says, a yearling who puts her nose into the wrong den may have her ears bitten off. So they know what happened. They know that she warned Rand that the Aes Sedai were coming. But Min is sort of distracted when she notices there are 2 new Aes Sedai in the back of the common room, Bera Harkin and Karuna Nashiman. And that makes the magic number 13 sisters in Camelin. That plus the aura Min saw is really enough to put her in a panic. You know, It's sort of tragic if you think about it. It's like Min forgets that the stuff she sees happens, that it doesn't usually, you can't really prevent it. And in this case, in trying to prevent it, she inadvertently plays a role in causing it to happen. And it, you know, to be fair, maybe it would have happened anyway, just a few days later or something. But
hard to know.
Yeah, but definitely happens as a result of her actions, or in part. So she tells Mahiro, you know, she's like, I'm going to go look at the sights in the inner city for a few days. Mahiro responds, you will kidnap a husband yet if you are not careful. I want more of this guy. I do. I think that'd be great. Really enjoy that back and forth. Min gets Wild Rose, rides back to the palace at a gallop. Switch back to Rand, who responds to the news about the 13 Aes Sedai, about like I'd expect, by fighting with Lews Therin for control of Sidene.
Yeah, that time-honored tradition.
Yeah. He tells Min, all right, we're going to Karin. So they go to Perrin's room. So it's going to be a whole entourage. Perrin, Fael, Bane and Chiad, Gaul, Loyal, you know, pretty much Rand's entourage plus Perrin's entourage, you know, at this point.
Right.
So everybody gets to letter writing and packing. That's that's what we're doing before we go. Loyal writes a letter to Aerith, and then Dara shows up with 500 maidens, and Rand just sort of rolls his eyes, like, all right, fine, let's get through. Let's go in through the gateway. And after he gets everyone through, he's just so tuckered out that Loyal has to carry him to his rooms in the Sun Palace, which is kind of a fun picture. So then we switch to Marana, who reads the letter Rand wrote to her, in which he says, I'm going to Karin because 13 is the wrong number. You can follow me with no more than 5 other sisters to be on an equal footing with the tower. Don't push me again. I don't have any trust left. But they're all just mainly a little shocked that he knows how to travel, and also how disrespectful he is. So they ask Alana, like, okay, why aren't you manipulating him through the order bond? And Alana just gets kind of sarcastic. She's like, oh, yeah, why didn't I think of that? And she says, have you ever attempted to uproot an oak tree with your bare hands, Karuna? It was much the same. Maybe because you can channel. Not like sisters are going around bonding dudes who can channel left and right, so this is sort of uncharted territory. But she does still know where he is, so Alana will tag along on the group of sisters going to Karin. So Karuna takes over. The Saladar embassy is defunct, but Marana can come along if she wants. Quite humiliating. A couple other random Aes Sedai go as well. Valinda, Berenicia, Karin? Wait a second. There's an actual Karin. Yeah, I mentioned this last episode. It's Kairen, but there is a Karin in the world of Aes Sedai. But to any Karens in our listening audience, at least your name isn't Alexa or Siri. So take comfort in that. On a separate note, Alexa, play What's New Pussycat. If anybody's playing this on speaker.
That would be great. Yeah. I know of at least one Karin who is a friend of mine who hopefully has made it to this episode.
All right. So, I don't know why. Rachel has an aunt named Karin. It's just the go-to name, of the
right these days. Yeah. Bless them.
Indeed. So, chapter 50, Thorns. Makes me think of Paladin from Diablo 2. Rand spends a day in his bed at the Sun Palace. Sulin stalks in, fluffs his pillows, and adjusts the sheets, growls, stalks out. Rand finds the flute Tom gave him and manages to play something like a recognizable tune for men. A dozen or so wise ones come in, led by Sorley and Amos, and Min jumps up from sitting in his lap. The wise ones and Camelin have let the Carianan ones know what happened, so they kind of give him a once-over about it. Make sure he's okay. Karin, head of the Tower Embassy, for anyone who's forgotten like me, sends Rand a letter inquiring after his health, and it's like, hey, can we come see you? We'll give you healing if you want, and kind of contrasts to the way he was treated in Camelin. Rand sends back thanks and polite refusal, but does ask if Gawain will come visit. He knows Gawain thinks he murdered Morghese, but he always kind of liked the dude when he talked to him,
right?
But the idea that Gawain wants to kill him kind of puts him in a gray humor. He doesn't like it. I mean, that would put me in a gray humor too, knowing somebody wanted to kill me.
Yeah, I don't typically hang out with guys once they've stated their intent to murder me.
I'm not going to try to win them over. I think that's where I draw the line. Like, okay, I feel like you've made your intentions clear. I think I'm good.
Boundaries, man. Boundaries.
Yeah. Rand feels Alana coming closer each day and realizes that she must be one of the 6 chosen to follow him to Cairhien. Tries to go see Herod Fell, but gets a note that was left by him that says, "We'll explain when see you next. Do not bring girl. Too pretty." The next time Rand goes to see him, Idrian says that Herod felt young again and had gone fishing.
Why not?
Yeah. Min spends lots of time with the wise ones in Cairhien, which irritates Rand. He wants her to view the nobles that are coming to visit him. He's worried that Forsaken will attack him and she'll get hurt, though, so he wants her to stay hidden. But every one of the nobles she does manage to view is going to die violently. I guess that isn't really that surprising for a Cairhien noble. Poison, ice pick, hanging,
whatever,
all the good ways, just the greatest hits of death. Cool disinterest exists between Min and Fael, but when Berelain comes in to see Rand, Min and Berelain eye each other up and down and smile. Very strange.
Yeah.
Rand asks Berelain, why have you been in your rooms rather than ruling Cairhien? And she asks, well, who do you mean to rule here for real? And he says Elaine, which she approves of. And she says, rumor has it that the Aes Sedai are there to escort Rand back to the White Tower. Rand's like, leave the Aes Sedai to me. So after Berelain leaves, Min sniffs and says, I wonder why she bothers wearing any clothes at all. But then she asks Rand for cash to get seamstresses to make her some new coats and breeches and silk. Some quite form-fitting and low-cut. She practices throwing knives, and the maidens begin to show her how to fight with hands and feet. Taekwondo, Aiyo style. Or maybe judo, whatever. So Rand is pleased to see Ruark and Berelain hard at work again. Ruark mentions that Savannah has been in the tents, and Rand's like, why don't you just seize her? She's awful. Ruark says, hey, man, she's a wise one. The other wise ones accept her, so that's good enough for me. Rand's like, okay, fine. We're going to have to send spears south towards where the Shadow are, even though really he wants to send everything towards Samael. And Rand thinks the time he spent in Cairhien has been refreshing. Ha!
Yeah.
So switch to Perrin, who is not having a good time. He's being stalked by Berelain and blamed for it by his wife.
Stalked by a Berelain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So one day
sorry.
she sneaks up and says he has a beautiful back and says, "Oh, I hear you have a wife now," which doesn't seem to discourage her in the slightest. And Fael talks about notching his ears like a horse, probably trying to pick a fight, which he doesn't take the bait.
Yeah.
The Karin try to exploit him for his connection to Rand. All smell dangerous. Can't imagine that's a nice smell. One time he asks Berlane to stop, and she pats his cheek right as Fael walks up. And that goes over about as well as anyone would expect. And she doesn't talk to him for a while. And he says, "I'm sorry," which does not make things better. As we discussed last episode, makes perfect sense.
Right.
Apologizing is not what she wants. She wants to get into a knockdown, drag out fight with him, and he won't do it.
Yep.
So Perrin tries to run away by hunting every day till dark. But then Berlane just hides outside his rooms, waiting to pounce. and Perrin's miserable. He just wants Fael to tell him how to fix it. Switch back to Rand, who receives yet another request from Karin for an audience. So Rand thinks that Alana will reach him in about 10 more days, which is time enough to meet with the Tower Embassy 2 more times, which will put the two groups on equal footing. Decent plan as plans go. Play them off against each other, but you're not going to get to. So he writes back to Karin accepting a request, and Lews Therin mutters, "Yes, Samael. Kill him this time. Demandred and Samael and all of them. This time, yes, I will." And Rand doesn't really notice. Probably not good. Chapter 51, The Taking.
Here it is.
Oh, yeah. This is the chapter. This is the one I've been expecting for, 2 books now. I just could never remember when it happened. So Sulin mutters that Rand should be respectful of the Tower Aes Sedai. So he asks if Min has come in yet while trying to wrench his coat out of her hands. And she says, "Do you see her? And also, what do you want with her? You hardly want your bottom pinched when the Aes Sedai are here, my Lord Dragon." Okay, just go find her. But before she goes, he asks Sulin how long will she continue to be pretending to be a servant. And so she sort of becomes herself again for a minute and says, "Until my shame equals theirs," and then runs off to find Min. So Lews Therin says, "Demandred wants Ilyena," which makes him start weeping. Nice contribution there, Lews.
Yep.
Rand takes the dragon scepter to the anteroom. Chiad comes in and says, "The Aes Sedai are here." Rand's like, "All right, send him in." So Karin glides in, followed by Galina and another raven-haired woman with the face of an Aes Sedai. But there's also a bunch of servants in dusk cloaks carrying big old chests. And the servants he sees look young. Rand curls his lip, thinking they're going to buy him. Nope, that's not what's going to happen here. And Galina says, "A pity your green sister isn't here today." Then his skin begins to tingle, so he gets really mad and seizes Sidene. But then a shield slides between him and the true source, like the closing of a sluice gate, which is impossible.
Oh, no.
No 3 women could hold a shield on him, especially not after he's taken hold of Sidene. Not unless they're as strong as Cimarag or Masana. Then one of the serving girls steps forward, and Rand realizes he's been had. Another ageless face. So Karin says, "It's a pity you didn't come willingly. There are 15 Aes Sedai here," Rand's pretty sure. All of the servants. 13 to link and shield him, 2 to bind him with air. Galina says, "I'm in charge now," and plucks the dragon scepter from his hand and hands it to Katarine. "We'll make an amusing souvenir for the Amerlin," she says. Switch to Bane, who looks up in surprise. The Aes Sedai and their servants bring out the chests. One of the Aes Sedai tells Bane that Rand left, I guess, by Gateway or something. I don't know. But she's like, we're not used to being just stood up like that. But if he comes back, let us know and maybe we'll come back. But only for a few days. Just let us know in the next few days. I guess Rand's kind of penchant for just leaving whenever he wants has really bitten him this time.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's expecting him to do this because he just does random stuff like this all the time. They're like, "Oh, he did it again." So Perrin's like, "What the heck?" But Nandera's like, "Yeah, he does this sometimes. You never know where he might have gone." And of course, Perrin doesn't know. Switch back to Rand, who is lying on a bed in a basement, surrounded by a metal cage. Muscles ache from being doubled up in a chest. They carried him around in a chest. Galina tells him to eat or he will be fed. Rand turns away and doesn't look at her. Or the 6 Aes Sedai seated around the cage, maintaining the shield. And Rand feels against the shield and finds a place where the wall turns into 6 points. But he can't break the shield. He just can feel where it stops being a wall and becomes 6 points. So gray bleakness sort of settles over him because he has no idea where he is. But one thing he is sure of is he will never trust an Aes Sedai again, like Moraine told him to. And he thinks surely Bear or Amis will notice 6 women channeling enough of the power to maintain a shield, if they haven't already left the city. So
Right.
switch briefly to Soralia, who does feel the Aes Sedai channeling inside the house, but they've been doing that since they arrived, and she has bigger things to worry about, like where Rand went.
Right.
She also mentions that Min has also disappeared, and Soralia does not like coincidences. So this is actually something that Egwene had noticed chapters ago, that there was a ton of channeling going on in the house. You can only surmise that this was just them sort of covering their tracks. So
Right.
if everyone saw that they were channeling a ton the whole time they've been there, like the fact that they're doing it now to maintain the shield on Rand is not anything to be
Exactly. Right.
So, chapter 52, Weaves of the Power. Now that something major has happened, we better check in with everyone else before finding out what happens next.
That's how we roll. In fact, in a few books, we have a whole book that is basically that Crossroads of Twilight is basically just checking in with everyone after something major has happened.
Mm-hmm. So Matt's dicing with some locals, and plus a few Mirandians, Damani, Amatha on the air. His luck isn't in at the moment, so he's winning about half of his dice tosses. Venin tells him that the ladies are out again. They've sneaked away, and Tom doesn't know how. So Matt mutters, "Next, the daughter of the 9 moons is going to walk in and claim me," to which a blue-eyed man chokes on his drink. Matt asks if he knows the name, and the man says, "I punch him down the wrong pipe," in a slurring accent. So we got ourselves an undercover Shan Chan, it sounds like. Matt says, "Never mind," gets up to leave. So Oliver asks Matt to take him horse racing. All this is so important. It's really important we hear all this stuff. Nolesian has entered Oliver and his horse, and it's some wind in a few races that Oliver won. This little scene where, anyway, Oliver compliments an innkeeper's daughter, yada, yada, anyway. Matt says you can put him in a barrel if you want. So Matt and the fellas head out to hunt for the ladies who've given them the slip. After Niram forces him to change coats. I love just like all the little details here. Just like it's either infuriating or interesting. I can't decide which sometimes. Switch to Elaine, and who is hunting for the bowl with Birgitta, having no luck. They're both disguised by the power, dressed to look like locals. They've had to learn the hard way that asking questions is a bad idea. 2 times a pair of women have come out after them, chased after them with daggers drawn. Suddenly 2 men jump out of an alley fighting each other with daggers, and so they have to stop and watch, because if you don't, that's apparently noticeable and would attract attention. One of them manages to knife the other one, and so the one guy the knifed man falls down, and Elaine moves to heal him. Before she gets there, another lady steps in and shoves some herbs in the man's mouth and weaves some very complex weaves of healing. She's a wilder, I guess. So the man dies anyway, and she tells the other man, "You got to go tell the dead man's wife he killed him." Elaine starts to follow the wilder, but Brigitte stops her. I mean, honestly, Elaine, what are you thinking? They do see Nolesian and Matt, who don't notice them, of course, because of their disguises. Brigitte says, "Matt is the more dangerous of the two, a Nishar and Memeris." Oh, of course.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, she wonders aloud what they're doing there. And Elaine says they are probably drunk. Just assuming Matt's always drunk now.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
So switch to Egwene, who is waiting patiently for Logain to drink some water. She asks him, "What do you think of Rand's amnesty?" And Logain's like, "Are you going to gentle me again?" Egwene says, "I don't know, it's up to the hall. But whatever happens, you can still serve unless you try to turn on us." But this gets him mad, so she wraps him up in air. And he says, "I wish I was with Rand now. Light burn you all." So Egwene's like, "All right, I'll come back when you calm down." She goes out and she talks to Swan, who says, got a plan in place to let Logain go, basically. And I guess that whole conversation was just so that she could plant the idea in his head to go see Rand. That was the whole point.
Right.
So after...
Of course, the rest of the Saladar Aes Sedai have no idea that Egwene has done this.
Yes, only Swan. Yeah, this is going to be staged to look like an accident, like he just got away. And she tells Swan, make sure he doesn't hurt anybody when he leaves. Essentially, just kind of doesn't want to have his death or him being gentle again on her conscience, and just thinks maybe he'll do good if he gets away. Maybe we can control him slightly somehow if he's with Rand. So after a dinner of goat, Egwene goes into the world of dreams, talks with Elaine and Nynaeve. Of course, they haven't found the Bowl of the Winds yet. Talk about Matt, no news there. Met with the Wise Ones. And she had met with the Wise Ones, and they said that Elaine and Nynaeve can't find the bowl in the world of dreams again, because it's like trying to eat the same apple twice. Actually, she said motai, which is a bug, a sweet and crunchy bug. So Elaine tells Egwene to tell Min that she hopes Aviendha can be friends with Min as much as Elaine is. Okay, whatever. So after that cryptic message, she pieces out, and Nynaeve asks about Lan. And Egwene doesn't know anything, of course. Nynaeve says he's alive. I won't allow anything else. Egwene wakes up. Switch to Myrell, who we get a scene where Lan shows up to see Myrell, and she looks into his eyes and sees death, and we, essentially understand that she has his bond. He seems like he's going to die, and she's like, how am I going to keep him alive? And that brings us to the end of that chapter.
That's why I said in the last episode, hey, Morel's important. You want to hang on to that one. Not all of these are disposable.
Right. Not Karin, but...
So I have one very small spoilery thing. So if you're wanting to stay unspoiled, you can join us next week, and we'll be still in
I think.
Yeah, Lord of Chaos, finishing it up. Yeah, spoilers. This was very small, but I just noticed this time when approaching the palace in Ebudar, Matt stares at it, and he's just wondering what it would be like to live there.
Yeah, that's true.
And of course, he becomes Tylan's toy. So not only, he very much learns what it's like to live there.
Puts on some frilly lace,
right, and then some. Not much, mind you, just a little. I just thought that was funny in retrospect, reading it now.
Gosh, how long is Matt a boy toy for? It's a good while.
Yeah, it's a large portion of the slog.
Yeah, man, there's so many problems with the slog. I mean, I don't have problems with him being a boy toy, but it's just we get Jordan goes on and on about it ad nauseum, and it's like, oh my goodness, I am just done with this plot.
Yep.
I mean, he does some cool stuff in there at the same time fighting the golem and all that sort of thing, but there's not a lot of redeeming qualities otherwise to his time in Ebudar after this.
Yeah, it's true. It's you've got these little bits and pieces throughout the slog that are a lot of fun, but other than that, yeah, it's kind of hit or miss.
Yep.
Well, anyway, that's our episode. So thanks for joining us. As always, you can go find us at tsmpodcast.com, fill out our contact form, say nice things or a kindly correction, and we may give you a shout out on the show. Yeah. You can also find us on all the socials at Podcast TSM. We're on YouTube also. And wherever you get your podcasts, if you could do us a favor, go over there, give us a rating, give us a review. That, helps get the word out. Until next time, Tai'Shar Manethrin.